From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the business of esports. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Dewalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts Jimmy Barada and William Collis. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the 5-star ratings and reviews. If you haven't yet, go leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get our podcast, wherever you watch it. Maybe it's on YouTube. Make sure to follow us, subscribe to us, and leave a review. We really appreciate it. It helps others to find the podcast. How are you guys doing this week, Jimmy, William?
I mean, I'm doing well, but I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't know. Did anyone else play Metroid Dread and then beat it and be like, that was a Metroid game? Like,
were you expecting more from a Metroid game or any kind of like side-scrolling like platformer at this point in the lifetime, like your gaming lifetime?
Let's put it this way. Like, Nintendo has basically done no wrong recently, right? They had Breath of the Wild. They had Smash Brothers Ultimate. They had like Mario Odyssey, which I think was brilliant. Like, their main line title releases have been awesome. And this is the first official 2D Metroid game in like some ridiculous number of years. And it ends the Metroid story. Right. So I was
Spoiler
like,
alert.
Well, they basically had in the advertising campaign, but the claim is it wraps the Metroid. And I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing because we've had so many good 2D platformers, you know, Hollow Knight, right? Like, I mean, that's like defined, like the genre's moved on so much. And I was like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And I played it. I beat it in like 6 hours. Like, I'm not kidding. My playtime was like 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Maybe you're just that
I'm not
William.
that good. I'm not that good. I know that because when I play Valorant, I D-rank to Iron 3. So I'm telling you right now, I'm not that good at video games.
Look, I think I'm nostalgic, William, only for WoW. Everything else, the nostalgia doesn't seem to work. I don't know why anyone would want to play old, sort of ugly-looking games. Old styles, old genres.
It ruins the nostalgia, honestly. Like when you go back and revisit these old titles, you know, they just re-released all those Mario titles for Switch, and I don't want to play Ocarina of Time because it's going to destroy the memory.
It's fun for like I find like 10 or 15 minutes. You're like, oh yeah, I remember this music, I remember this intro, I remember this, and then it's like, well, it's an old game at its core, right?
Yeah, you know, it's not always true. You'd be surprised. A lot of old games really hold up. Like a good example of that is Super Mario Brothers on the SNES, right? Like if you play that now, it feels good and fun to play, right? So it's not always true, but it's definitely true that you have rose-colored glasses when you look at the past because stuff that was so innovative at the time is now par for the course. Like it used to be a big deal to have fully voice-acted characters, right? And now, like, even indie games have pretty much every line of dialogue voiced and acted. So, you know.
Predictions on how the GTA remasters will do. And I'm curious, before we introduce, we've got some great guests on the podcast today. But before we bring them in, predictions on how the new COD's going to do, because that was some of the big news this week, right? New COD out officially, the latest, you know, this year's release. Do we think it's going to be a success? Jimmy, do you think it beats last year's?
I think it beats Black Ops. I don't think it touches Modern Warfare, so it'll be somewhere in between the two and probably on the lower end is my guess. I definitely updated last night. You guys know I had a hard stance against COD recently because of the anti-cheat and all the everything going on over there. I'll play it for 2 or 3 days and probably just get my FPS fix and go back to New World. So that's how I feel.
William, what's your prediction?
I think it's going to blow expectations out of the water.
Really? Why?
Yeah, because if you think of what's happening in the shooter market, I think Battlefield was sucking up quite a lot of air, right? Like the new and I think Battlefield is going to disappoint bluntly. Like
Interesting. You think new COD will do well, new Battlefield will fail, or not fail, but will not meet expectations?
Well, partly because I'm a believer in COD, but partly after the open beta for Battlefield, my confidence level is a little shaken for that title. Bluntly, right? And I think if you look at what's arrayed against COD in the new shooter market this year, a lot of people shied away because Battlefield was the big opposition to the perennial juggernaut. So I think I'm super bullish on COD. I think it's basically going to a market with no competition this year.
Interesting. That's an interesting view. Now, here's where I'm curious. I'm curious where our guests fall on this, and maybe that's we'll get their take right off the bat here. But we have today on the podcast none other than Tyler Endres, CEO and founder of Esports Arena, and Luke Brue, who's the chief sales officer for Esports Arena. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having us, you guys. It's our pleasure.
Yeah, super excited to be here. Big fan of the podcast, so was definitely excited to get to hear the intro live for once.
Everyone, I find the comment I get maybe most often is everyone's surprised I do it live every time. It's not pre-recorded.
I was gonna say it, but I got nervous. I backed out, but I was gonna be like, as soon as you started, no way, that's real. I thought it was pre-recorded every single time. Yeah. Turn the office of the board.
Guys, super excited to have you on. Would love for you guys, for our listeners who maybe don't know about Esports Arena. I think that's probably few, but would love for you guys to give a bit about your backgrounds, how you got into gaming, what you're focused on at Esports Arena, a bit about the business, just the Tyler and Luke story.
Yeah, I think I'll kick that one off, and then I'll sort of lead off to Luke. Holes, and have Luke take over part two of how he got on board. But essentially, myself, I started competing in Halo 2 back in high school, and I love that game so much. And a few buddies of mine, we decided to end up even go to college because we had such a fun time playing Halo 2 at that college when we went there for the first time. And so we decided to go to a school called Azusa Pacific University and competed in Halo so much that in college, people thought we were cheating. So they'd all come down to our dorm room and just watch us play, because playing on a LAN network obviously was so much better. And just playing against everyone, like big team battles and things like that, we just annihilated them. Everyone's going for SMGs and dual SMGs, and we just went for the battle rifle every single time and just 4-shot kill them every single time, and then go for the sniper. So they thought we were cheating. And then we were MLG's coming to town. This is 2007, and we decided to compete for the MLG tournament. And we did okay. The problem with the original tournaments back in the day were you had to compete in both. You had to compete in the solo, and you also had to compete in the team. We weren't the best at solo, and so we also didn't have that much money. So at the Anaheim Convention Center, you had to pay $70 per, and so we paid for the team, and one of us paid for the solo. But then what we didn't know was that you get seeded based on how well you do in the solo. So we were seeded almost last, and ended up losing pretty quickly, for the first round, because we went up against Kill 3N. I think one of the ogres was on that team, so we absolutely just got obliterated. But then later on, we were competing against other people and stuff like that, and actually did pretty well. And so we thought man, where could we go to get better at the game that we love? And at that point, 2007, 2008, there was nothing out there. I mean, you could obviously go to a LAN center, but LAN centers, they weren't that cool. And we just kind of liked our thing with our buddies, and we wanted to go somewhere to compete versus just go pay per hour. And so we got really good at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, started playing that one, went on 125 game win streak, and Domination. And so we always had this team together and stuff like that. So then once we graduated, we were man, we got to keep that dream alive and find out what we can do to create a place that you can compete on a nightly basis. And that's the origination of how Esports Arena was thought of. And so in 2010, we all graduated, kind of kept this fun little project of just developing the business plan. Oh, it'd be cool if it did this, and we should develop this way. And then at that time, Twitch was going crazy too. And so Twitch became real popular. Esports was kind of becoming a household name with a lot of gamers. And so then we decided to keep it going. And we actually reached out to Sundance from MLG, and we wanted to call it MLG Arena. And so we're like, hey, here's a risk-free. Us naive entrepreneurs just right out of college basically said like, hey, we'll pay for it. We just want to use your name and branding. And believe it or not, he actually took a call with us, and as well as the COO. I can't remember his name. And so we were talking with him about it, and then just didn't quite happen. So, and I kind of thought like the dream was dead. I had a job at the time. I was selling kitchen equipment, and my business partner at the time, he was in the military, so he was developing the plan and all that sort of stuff. And then we just kind of kept the dream alive, and we ended up applying for a small business loan, got it, and at the time it was only $162,000. We thought we were rolling. Like literally, this was going to open up Esports Arena. This was going to pay us all a big salary. But then like we go to check out some buildings and things like that, and they're like, oh yeah, it's nowhere near enough money. And so they kind of like, again, deflated us. And then we found this building in Santa Ana, California. And this building owner loved our concept so much that he elected to pay for everything. So he basically bought this building, and then we come in like 2 months later, and he goes like, hey, I got to do all this work to it anyway, but I'll build it to your scope. And so we put the stage in, we developed this whole thing. It took about 2 years to build. So which was tough for us because I'd quit my job and we were paying ourselves like really minimal amount of money. And then we opened, so that was in 2013, like November. And then we opened the doors in September of 2015 in Santa Ana, California. And man, we just right out the gates, like saw success. Mike Morheim, Amy Morheim, like they were coming there, like checking out the space all the time. And Blizzard was doing a bunch of events with us all the time, which was really cool. And then obviously Hearthstone was one of the games that was like really easy to run tournaments for, but also getting great numbers. And so we were doing some Hearthstone tournaments a lot. And then we ended up doing like our first $25,000 tournament, which is our big opening event, October like 3rd or 4th weekend. And this guy was competing in that event because he had come to a few of those qualifying events that we had before that. And so then he played against like Raynad, he played against Strife Crow and all those like big names. Zixo was the guy who won that tournament, right? And so then Luke was competing and under Shimonahi. And then, so that's essentially how Luke got involved in the Esports Arena. So like essentially day one of us opening the doors, and he forced himself into the company.
Had to crawl my way in. You know, like I come from like just a big background of trading card games. So I grew up on Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, you pretty much name it, I played it. And I'm also a huge Blizzard fanboy from back in the day. I don't know about nowadays. We won't touch that. But, you know, I come from World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft 2, you know, watching GOM TV at 3 a.m. for Korean World Finals, that kind of stuff. So when Hearthstone came out, I got super into that space. And a buddy of mine, I was working at Wells Fargo at the time because I come from the banking space. And a buddy of mine was coming down from college, and he was like, hey, this new place just opened up. It's called Esports Arena. It's like super close to where we live. Like, let's go down there and do a Hearthstone tournament. And I was like, all right, sure, no problem. Like, let's go. So I pick him up. I go to Esports Arena, and it pretty much went exactly like he said. It's, you know, I walked in, I was like, wow, this place is crazy. I didn't know stuff like this existed. And I entered the tournament. It was honestly a lot of players. There was like maybe like 120, 200 like Hearthstone players. And I ended up winning the whole tournament, which gets me qualified into the $25,000 invitational, which was like crazy to me because it was like my first time ever competing in a anything like that.
You were like 18, right?
I was younger than that. I even want to say maybe.
Were you still in high school?
I was in high school. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. I was like 17, 18 at the time. It was crazy. I ended up winning that. And on top of just winning the tournament, I also, like you mentioned, I won a raffle to compete against Raynad on stage. And not only was Raynad my favorite streamer and player, he was like, it's like meeting your idol, like frame one. Like you walk into like a concert venue and
that was Esports Arena.
Ariana Grande like high fives you, you know what I mean? Like
it just made dreams come true.
Dreams come true. Arena. Frame one, and I won too. And I absolutely smacked him on stream. It was an absolute blast, and it was just such a cool experience. And even after going to the 25K and getting destroyed by all the actual pro players, I didn't win a single match. It was fine, not the point. But the experience itself, to me, was just like could change my whole life, because I got to be on the big stage, compete in front of all these fans. It was so exhilarating. Just like the overall experience was just, it was so enjoyable for me that I realized that all I wanted to do was help bring that to other people. Especially when I realized how few and far between esports arenas actually were.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when Luke, when we hired him, I remember his quitting story was hilarious. He was on his way to Wells Fargo, making probably decent money at Wells Fargo. And then we had no money, so I could barely pay him anything. And then I just remember you got an offer for minimum wage to come work for us. And then on your way to work is when you got that offer, and you walked in, you quit, and then came to work at Esports Arena.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it was comparable salaries by any means, or a salary even. Moving trash cans for a startup esports company, I definitely didn't like over my banker salary. But we take what we get in industries like that, where again it was such a fresh industry back then that there was nothing. So being able to see that opportunity, and especially what Tyler and crew were able to create out of nothing, I couldn't say no.
Yeah. So go ahead. So I didn't know.
No, I was just going to say, can you guys talk to a little bit like what Esports Arena is focused on today, what the business looks like today, and a little bit about sort of the future, where you see it going?
100%. So, I think I'll still allude to a bit to the past, because it obviously influences the future and where we're at. But essentially, Esports Arena back in the day, we were doing like such cool things with events and with focusing on the customer. But the challenge, of course, was we grew too fast. And that happens a lot to, I think, a lot of like hot young businesses, that you get all this attention and everyone goes like, oh, we should open one up here. You should open one up here. And then opening one in Austin and Oakland and Las Vegas, even though we didn't open in Austin until with the Walmart partnership. But I was so focused on doing those things because that was fun, that you ignore your customer, your core customer, and what they truly want from Esports Arena. And so that was a big mistake, because it was, we just like Santa Ana, it was such a legendary facility, but it just at the time kind of hit a lull. And what's up?
And like for reference on that, essentially he means like, we would host like Blizzard, right? We would host the Legion World of Warcraft launch event. We'd host the StarCraft Legends, what is it? Legacy of the Void launch party. We do NCSoft's launch event. We do all these like big one-off individual events or big one-off individual tournaments, but it wasn't anything that was giving us longevity or building our own community. It was always we were hosting someone else's, or we were, building, just being a white label production company. And again, it was super fun and and great money. We're making money on it, but there wasn't the long-term business plan that we found.
No, that was I think when I'd gone through the investment process, I had some founders leave the company, and so then it was all just kind of down to me at that point. I learned a lot, and then obviously you learn a lot too when the bank account starts getting lower and lower, and then you're trying to raise capital, and then you wanted to focus on the future. So I think when we learned all those mistakes from the past, during that time and opening up other facilities, Walmart was looking for a new video game strategy. I shouldn't speak on Walmart's term for them, essentially, but from my assumption, games are going digital, and Walmart's a physical retail space, and so they're probably losing some decent sales from video games, essentially. Again, skeptics here. This is just Tyler speaking, skeptics. And so they, looking at esports as being something that's really hot at the time, and we were one of those few physical sort of like esports entertainment spaces, or the first of its kind, right? One of the coolest things when we actually developed the name Esports Arena, it was one of those things I wanted to call it Esports Pro Arena. And so then it was, I don't know, we didn't go that route, thankfully. It's like the Facebook and just calling it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Drop the.
So we kept the pro out.
When Airbnb first pitched me, it was actually Air Bed and Breakfast, believe it or not. So
yeah, exactly.
You fixed it for them though, right?
Yeah.
I turned them down, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's a
whole other podcast. And so we called it Esports Arena, but we ended up trademarking that name, and that was huge. And so the fact that we can trademark the name Esports Arena was, at the time, it was like, what's esports? Sure, we'll trademark this. And now, of course, it's like trademarking football stadium, which is pretty great. And so when Walmart searched for us, I think they searched for a lot of other companies out there, and then we just kind of meshed well. And then we started this pilot program where we would open up 5 miniature esports arenas inside of Walmart stores. And at that time, it was like, I guess that would work. I don't know. But Tyler says, Walmart, largest company in the world, you should probably work with them. And so we opened up these first 5 pilot stores, and they actually did pretty well. And we had kind of realized that, the smaller business of, less of a headache, right, of running all these huge events and then huge productions, and then trying to finish the next day so we can run our Monday night League of Legends tournament and then have those computers set up for that. Like, that was so much strenuous on our staff. And so with these smaller Walmart stores, it's like, this could actually scale. This could do really well here. And we're still providing this high level competitive experience when it comes to esports and gaming that is just inside of Walmart. So it's not like it's different. You're still getting that community vibe. You're going there with the like-minded people that you want to compete against. It just makes us more accessible. Walmart has a massive parking lot. If you're hungry, then go to the Subway or McDonald's. That's literally right next door to us. If you need to finish some shopping for the week, then just walk out on the floor and buy whatever you need. And then it's, you're still there for competing in the game that you love. So we opened up those stores and did pretty well. Walmart and I decided that we would open up more. So then we decided to open up a total of 18 more and run those tests. And then obviously with COVID, we were going gangbusters. We opened up like 12 or 13 in like February and March of 2020. And so I was in Philly, I think Luke was in Florida, and we were essentially being like, we all got to go back home. And so then we shut everything down. But during that time, I should actually probably talk about Series E, because that's, I think, the most creative thing this company has ever thought of. We had a lot of brands reaching out to us, like Pringles, Intel, Razer, obviously. We have Excedrin as a partner now, Vizio's partner now, Mobile One. All these brands were basically saying, hey, Walmart, what are you doing with esports? That would be, we really like this, and can we get involved? Because think about it, the end user, who's our end user, is again an attractive clientele. It's the 20 to 30-year-old male with disposable income that you would want to market to. And what better way to market to them than literally in person? And so with Walmart, we were able to get a lot of these brands' attention because we're such a unique concept inside a Walmart store that a lot of these brands are saying, hey, how can we get involved? And so we had come up with this concept to say, like, well, what if the brands were the teams? And so we could find these teams, house these teams, and then have them be Team Pringles, Team Intel, Team Excedrin, Team Vizio, Team Mobile One, things like that. And then these brands would also get a chance to sell inside our stores. They're already selling at Walmart, and so to get more shelving space inside a store, it's pretty premium, especially when it's this unique customer that's buying your product. And so we could charge a fair amount of money for something like that, especially something that would keep the lights on and obviously help us grow and expand into more stores, which was our goal overall. And so we started Series E, which is effectively it's a semi-professional league where we sign players. We find our own amateur competitive players, whatever, and they get to a contract. They sign a contract with Esports Arena, and they get paid monthly for competing in our events and representing these brands. So we send them, like, we have the jerseys made, and they're representing Team Pringles, and they play for Series E. So we started this. We were going to do physical with Super Smash Brothers and Fortnite. Obviously, COVID, turned it all upside down. And so then we decided to focus solely on Apex Legends because we had a pretty good Apex Legends following at that point. And we were working pretty well with EA too. So it was like, all right, let's just, transfer everything over to EA and Apex Legends. So we ran it all digitally, and we signed these players. We do like a draft day even too, to where like I'm the commissioner of the league and I'm drafting these players to a contract. And right now they're earning $750 a month, competing twice a week. And the whole purpose of this is, again, looking back at myself, wanting to become a pro gamer, not being able to support myself while wanting to become a pro gamer, and then getting that consistent competition all the time. Because it just doesn't exist. You can compete online, but you got cheaters, someone's got better internet than you do, someone's got a better rig than you do, et cetera. And so for us, it's like we want to create a level playing field so that people can chase the dream to become a pro gamer. And there's been over 30 individuals that have played in Series E. We did our first successful year of Series E Apex Legends. And there's 30 of them that have been signed to pro contracts. Noble Gaming, Cloud9, TSM, or no, it's not TSM, CLG.
The list goes on.
Ghost, Noble.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that we've provided insight to these players. It's like, you have this whole scouting system. It's a collegiate system, right? But it's not collegiate. You don't have to go to college. That's what's the beautiful thing about esports. And so if you can be recognized, that's half the battle. And that is the overall issue, I believe, with esports, is how does one get recognized to become a pro gamer, to become successful, and then make the money? Because there's just no stepping stones. There's no way to be recognized unless you're just good at the game, and then you've got a good streamer following. And so like a lot of these guys don't ever get that chance. And if you're good at the game and you compete in our tournaments, because we have hundreds of people that hear about this, they compete in our tournaments. And then if they do well in those tournaments, then we want to reward you and then help you get recognized. And that's done very well for us. And in fact, we've signed our own team now, Team Esports Arena, that is now earning more money from us, but they're representing Esports Arena and, of course, all of our brands like a normal esports organization. So really, we're trying to do start to finish, right? We'll find your first step into esports, and then, of course, we'll pay you money along this whole way, and then hopefully you'll get a bigger contract with a bigger brand or a bigger org, and then you'll get a contract from Esports Arena. So that's our main focus. And if we can grow our business into more Walmart stores, which is the plan, and find competitive professional gamers at a younger age, then they could essentially be the little league, we could be the high school league, we could be the college league, the semi-pro league, and then I don't know about ever being the big league, but really creating that foundation so that all these the successful leagues that the game developers are running now have scouts essentially that you can follow our semi-pro league with Series E, and we can fund it because all these brands want to be a part of what we're doing with Walmart. And so it's a really good circle of life that we've created to support, this the financial stability of esports, because the money typically stops at the top. You have all these influencers, you have all these pro teams that basically have the money that they can sell brands to have the impressions that they can sell brands to receive that money and pay their players. But these younger guys who don't have the following, who don't have the team of individuals to sell branding for them, now have Esports Arena as that opportunity. So that's really our future and what our hope is with esports overall, and having hundreds of locations across the country potentially really means that we could be like that little league to where you have your first step into esports by going to an esports arena, and then you have this now path to pro.
Guys, I love it. I'm curious if you're trying to tackle a lot of different essentially subsectors of esports, right? Like the building out arenas inside Walmart. You could argue this is a business all on its own, right? And I'm curious, is the goal to get to 500 there, and then you're also sort of a tournament provider, right? Which could be a business all on its own, and then you're also esports teams, which could be a business all on its own.
And we're also a full production company.
Yeah. So how do you guys think about managing all of that and being successful in each one? Like, I'm curious how you think about it from either a resource allocation perspective, or, where are the strategic priorities?
Well, I think COVID shook up a lot. And so it's real tough to really now develop where these resources are being delivered. Like right now, the brands are heavily supporting the overall business because it's all digital at this point right now, and we're not getting as much physical attention as we used to, pre-COVID. So resources are being oddly shifted around. However, I think long term, if we just focus on, again, this customer, I think as long as this customer, customer X, has a great experience with Esports Arena, whether it be just going to play some fun games inside our facilities, going to a tournament inside our facilities, and then competing for Series E, and then ideally being recognized and being signed either by a pro contract from Esports Arena. Like, that's all new to us too, and that's probably in beta. Like, we may or may not continue down that path if it takes too much resources. So that's a really good point. But if we just focus on that customer, then I think all those resources have the same goal. And that's something that, is the brands are coming in only because we have people in our stores. If we can get people in our stores, then the brands will keep giving us support. If people keep coming to our stores, they're paying money over the counter to be a part of Esports Arena. So all we really need to focus on and put a lot of the resources and effort into is that in-store experience. If you look at us online, our digital presence not necessarily the best. We're not a FaZe Clan, we're not Optic with millions of followers and things like that. And obviously, I'd like to be there, but what we've really nailed down is the actual running of a business. And whether it's an esports business or whether it's we're selling shoes, we have a business model, and we can make this business model successful. So as long as this customer is happy, and we're providing something that this customer doesn't have at home. Because everyone would ask me, like, why would you do this? Because people play video games at their home. And I said, yeah, that's my number one competitor. Like, well, who's your competitor? They always ask me. I'm like, someone's bedroom. Because I prefer to play video games in my bedroom versus going to an esports arena. But if I want to compete, I'd love to go to an esports arena. I want to compete in this game that I love. I can win some money. I could be there with other people that are just as good, if not better, so I could better my game against them. So that's the purpose of Esports Arena, is the reason why you go seek us. But you also seek us if you are only playing on Nintendo Switch and you want to play at 200 frames per second in a 2080 graphics card, things like that. Then you go to Esports Arena, you pay the money to compete the game you love that has better frame rate. So as long as we can provide that experience for that customer, and that's again the core of our business, everything else just kind of could be developed on top of that. And that's been tough for us with COVID because we haven't had that customer back in our stores. But now that, of course, we're bringing that customer back, I'm really challenging the staff here to focus on that core customer, because as long as we have butts and seats inside our arenas, then we can develop that experience all around that.
Yeah, I love that, because I do believe the attachment to Walmart for you guys is kind of genius, right? It's to me, it's a little bit the ace in the hole, and I'm curious how you guys think about it relative to, like a Belong, for example, who's coming out and saying they're going to open 500 locations. Yeah. It seems you guys have a distinct competitive advantage being attached to Walmart. I've also, on the podcast, you guys probably know this because you listen, said empty mall space is probably also a good place for people to go. And, but is that how you think about it, as a real competitive advantage, a place where you already have the traffic? And do you think that's necessary for success in that sort of sphere of physical locations?
I think what's necessary for success is the ability to last, right? So like having funding, that's obviously big. Because I think if you were to go into malls, the problem with malls is some are dying, some they're not selling groceries. So like you always have to go to Walmart because you want to buy your groceries, things like that. And Walmart has obviously a ton of money to invest in the future and longevity of their stores. Whereas malls are dependent on their, people that lease them, those facilities in there. And if they're losing those people, then they can't support the infrastructure of the mall experience. And so I think that people are going to lose out on going to malls now, because these higher end, Nordstroms and whatever have you aren't going back into malls because the mall infrastructure is not that great anymore. It's like not that good. Whereas Walmart's always redeveloping things. They're always kind of getting ahead of the curve and things like that. So it is absolutely a competitive advantage to be with Walmart. And because every brand works with Walmart. Like we have a brand over there called Tomcat. It kills rats. They sponsor us.
Like literally in Apex Legends, when you're like the last player alive and you're like hiding, people call you the rat, right? So we have Tomcat Rat Cam that'll pop up a little like camcorder that's so like clever. Rat alert, and then when the rat dies, that rat gets exterminated. The rat or the cat swipes across the screen. It's a whole situation. But it really comes just back to the fact that we can provide a real ROI for brands, right? And at the end of the day, everyone who's been in esports for a long time, especially in the event creation space, brands, when it first started, were just throwing money at events. They were just like, oh, I want to sponsor this, I want to sponsor that, I need eyeballs, I need to be in gaming. And as we continue to develop, that gets harder and harder to unlock those brand dollars if you can't either, if you don't have strong case studies, especially that drive back to real ROI. And what's better ROI than the largest retailer in the world.
Yeah.
And their sales ability, right?
Yeah.
And so
you get to market almost like the slotting fees and things like that they would usually pay. They're getting included with you guys, right? That's I think the very, very clever sort of part of the piece of the puzzle and the way you guys maneuvered that. Jimmy, William, feel free to jump in here.
I wanted to build off on this Walmart concept just a little further. You mentioned starting off with a handful, rolling out, having to stop because of COVID, but now that seems to be, again, in full sprint. When you choose what regions you're entering for Walmart, is that something that they kind of dictate for you, or something that you have input on, or how are you choosing which Walmarts, what regions, where to go? As far as
that's a great question, and I'm excited to let Tyler kind of run with that for sure.
That is a question I'm very happy you asked, because I have a great story. So we when we first picked the first 5, we initially just kind of had a map on a dartboard and just kind of threw darts at it, right? Essentially. We let Walmart sort of help us dictate, like, oh, this is a good store. You're going to want this type of store. It does X, Y, and Z in sales, things like that. And so then we said, okay, great. We'll just go to these stores. So we just kind of hand picked them based off of an Excel spreadsheet. And then after about 8 months, I'd say we kind of learned like who was doing really well and what stores weren't doing well. And after visiting those stores, you kind of get a feel as to the reason why they're not doing well. First of all, I think any store can do really well. I think they overall can do really well because there's gamers everywhere and there's these communities everywhere. It's just, you have to tap into those communities, and that's very important. But if you want the immediate success and you want disposable income, then you have to really look at the numbers, the analytics. But so Roseville, California has been our number 1 store. That's not entirely sure why. Well, I mean, I have some ideas. And so that store itself does really well. We decided to mimic everything Roseville with those stores, or with our new stores. Sorry, Luke's got to change his battery pack because he's losing juice. So they're a little distracted here in the room. But regardless, so what I did when I decided to look at Roseville has like a Topgolf right next door to it. It's got restaurants next door to it. The store is a very successful store, and the average household income is actually pretty high. So, and not that I want to give away my trade secrets, but at the same time, I think we do have a competitive advantage over our competitors regardless. So that's fine. But I will say that I flew to Minneapolis because we have a store near Twin Cities, and I personally drove from Minneapolis all the way through upstate New York and then all the way down the East Coast to Florida. And I visited Walmart stores. I visited I'd go to like Charlotte and I'd visit 6 different stores in Charlotte. I visited, Nashville. I visited like 12 different stores, and I basically hand selected the stores that we were going to go into. And all along the way, I was getting into golf, and so I brought my clubs with me. And I'm also a massive Dave Matthews fan, and he happened to be on tour around those areas, and so I just followed Dave and looked at Walmart and hand selected and stopped in a truck. So I remember just thinking to myself, like, this is CEO life right here. Like, I gotta.
The concerts were business expenses, right, Tyler?
They were not. I personally did. I personally put those up. I got.
It was so funny for like how long was that trip? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I was gone for about 2 weeks.
It was like for 2 weeks straight. Every day I would wake up to Tyler's Instagram story, and it would just be his feet walking into a Walmart store like every morning at crack of dawn. It's still
saved on my Instagram right now. Yeah, it's like feet in Walmart. It's what it's called. I literally would, because everyone was like always filming their shoes and like, look where I'm at. And so I was kind of making fun of people that would do that. And then it would be a Walmart store every single time. And I'd like give people insights. Oh, this one's interesting. Like, oh, this one's got like pink over here. And this one's, over here. Here's the cars in the parking lot. And I'd like focus on like an old person, like, in their 70s, something like that. Are you a gamer? And then.
So I think to appropriately answer the question, we had 5 that we guessed on. Yeah. Then we took the analytics from that, followed those around the country to kind of find stores that were similar to the ones that did well. And if they were close to Dave Matthews Band concerts, then we opened up an Esports Arena, and that was it.
Yeah. There it is. Dave is ultimately the success radar.
So there you go. trade secret revealed, open land centers where Dave Matthews visits for concerts.
So anyway, great question.
William, go ahead. I know you wanted to chime in here.
So I have a very different sort of question, but it might be the most important question of the night, because this is something that I've agonized about for years that I don't have a definitive answer to. And I wonder if you can help me with. Which would you rather, right? Which would you rather? And Tyler, I think this is really for you. Battle rifle, plasma pistol.
Oh, no.
Battle rifle, shotgun. Can you Halo 2? Halo 2. Can you settle this?
Yeah, it's well, I don't ever like calling it a noob combo, because I actually feel like you had to be
it's pretty good. You can one shot with that.
So
you can one shot with it.
And if once that plasma hits that person, then bam.
Yeah.
Like, and then you had to be right there. It was perfect timing. So
if you timed it,
I wouldn't say it's as complicated as like an RRX, but it's like a BXR. I'd say it's kind of like that. So yeah, there's definitely combo over shotgun, because shotgun betrays you. It betrays you so many times. And like, you think you got the shotgun up going up, and just like, you feel like you hit him right in the face, but then he BXRs you and you're out. So yeah.
No, you believe shotguns risk, high reward, but a lot of times the reward isn't there. So no,
exactly.
that was my
100%. That's the most important question of the night, for sure.
Yeah, most important question of the night.
Yeah, sorry, I'm more of a Halo 3 guy. So
that's the age-old debate.
Actually, I don't think there's much debate there. Let's be honest.
Any debate.
Yeah, you're right. I'm clearly correct. I don't know what the debate would be. So
the new combo is a good combo. Seriously, I got a question. I guess sort of a more general, abstract question, which is like, you guys have been around esports for a long time. I mean, particularly, you're talking about, basically esports before esports was esports, right? And I think it's rare to see businesses that have sustained, but also individuals who've sustained in the space for this long with this much commitment. I'm just curious, and you think back 2007, semi-pro in Halo, $70 entry fees. Today, like, what's the one thing you wish you could tell yourself back in 2007, right? Or, sometime around then, that now that like characterizes the insights and the shift in the industry?
I think the biggest thing from back then is like, when you want to open up a business, you typically want to open a business that something that you love to do. And so you have so much passion and so much insight to this product that you love, but at the time the product really wasn't developed. So into what it's developed now, I'm actually not even the biggest fan of it, right? I think esports still needs a long way to go to really be at its fullest capabilities, which is why we're focused on what we're focused on, which is that foundation. But yeah, 15 years ago, I think I would have told myself to just take more business classes. I think,
and I think I kind of agree. Honestly, I would say kind of a similar answer, where a lot of stuff that we did originally in our first couple of years of like actually being open was exactly that, all passion focused. It was just like, hey, I like this game. I like Hearthstone. It'd be cool if we did with Hearthstone, if we ran this cool tournament. Hey, Will, can I have some money for a prize pool? Right? Like those type of just ideas and passion built concepts were just so easy and fun to do, but we never thought about how it would affect and grow our brand, how we could capture that audience and bring them back to Esports Arena the next week to continue growing that community. It was just like, oh, that's a one-off. That was fun. What can we do next time? Like, let's do this, let's do that. So I feel like if I could flash back a little bit, I would really just try to convince my older self to cultivate those communities and make it so we were able to retain those massive amounts of one-off weekend foot traffics that were coming through our space and really build a program like Series E or whatever foundation we have now.
We don't want them to be one and done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we focused on originally, was these big events, and it'd be one and done. But when I took over the company pretty much solely in like early 2018, it was a dark place. It was tough. And so I just think that I look back and I wish I would have had a lot more business savviness under my belt in order to run a business. And I think that's very key. But also at the same time, like, you have business guys that try to get involved in esports, and those have flopped. Those have flopped actually more, tremendously more so than the folks that have the passion of esports, I believe, because gamers see through the bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed customers, but
you are. I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
So but like, I mean, they do, right? And so, even for us, teaming up with a company like Walmart, we really had to make sure to keep it very separate. Like, look, Walmart is, hooking us up, with this cool space that they have, and we're developing an esports arena in this space to make it more accessible. That's the messaging I really truly believe, because we don't want to be sellouts and things like that, but at the same time, we still have to run a business. And I just think that's because if I would have learned P&Ls and budgeting and things like that and structures of business and taxes and insurance.
Ever heard of it?
Insurance is a joke. But it's not. Well, it kind of is. But anyway, I just wish I would have known more about those things running a business, because then it would have given me more time to really focus on the customer. I feel
Then flash another thing you said, which is, I wish I'd invested in the brand more. Like, I wish I'd been thinking about building the brand as opposed to one-off things. One of the, I think, criticisms that was leveled against, particularly the pro teams, right? The early stage pro teams, they were all brand, basically. Like, what defensible assets do they really have, right? Like, you can sign players. Like, come on, somebody else can come along with a bunch of money, poach those guys from you, right? Like, the only thing you have is the brand. And, there's some resonance to those criticisms, but at the same time, sort of what you're saying is it's early days. The brand is probably the most important thing here, because at the end of the day, the brand is the element that endures across a changing industry, an evolving industry, and an industry that, candidly, like, still, like, I don't know what the end state for this thing looks like. I don't think anybody really does, right? Does that give you more sympathy to these pro team arguments that, and in general to the arguments that were particularly common, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, about we've got to invest in the brand. The brand is what matters here. I think like FaZe is an excellent example of this potentially, but there are others. I'm just curious how you react to that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because let's go to Twitter and just type in esports organization. And I wish that there was like a filter that you could just like filter all these esports organizations, because there would be thousands of everyone trying to start their own esports organization, their own esports team. Mostly because like, oh, I got some guy, he plays, Apex Legends. He's incredibly good. So we're going to start an esports org around Apex Legends, and we're going to recognize and things like that. You look at these brands in esports, a lot of them were big because they did well at League of Legends back in the day. I mean, Team Solo Mid, Cloud9, CLG, like, you have these ones that do so well now because they were so cool in League of Legends, which was obviously the dominant figure in esports back in the day. So it's absolutely tough. I mean, if you're going to focus on the brand, especially in this competitive market, as an esports organization, if you have that one player who's loyal to your brand and that player blows up, and then gets, very popular, and now all of a sudden becomes like an influencer in a way, then your team could do well. Mm-hmm. That sucks. Like that is not how a business should be run. Like, obviously businesses, you have to have luck no matter what. But like, you could work so hard at becoming an esports organization. But then, like you said, like TSMs, they'll be like, hey, this guy, or FaZe, or 100 Thieves now. Like 100 Thieves is like, gobbling up all these big influencers and great teams, or these great players, because they have the money and they have the clout with Nate Shot, and now they got Courage, and now they got Pokemon. I mean, they got like Valk, sorry, Valkyrie. But like, they have everyone, all these massive influencers that have joined their team. It's like, that's the cool place to be. Like, that's the epitome of esports, is that I need to be there because that brand is so cool. So 100% agree with you on that. And yeah, I don't know, which is why we focused on the business, right? And then the brand has just sort of followed the business. And hopefully
you can
it works out well
and you
us.
can derive like, if you look at old FaZe Clan, right? Like you mentioned, old FaZe Clan was just the brand. It was the frat boys. It was this or that. And they really had to take a step back and completely reorganize themselves in order to become an actual profitable business, right? Like with Clinton Sparks and things like that. Like they had a lot of internal movement and more business-minded individuals that had to come in and take that from a brand to a profitable business. So I definitely think the sympathy is there to an extent, but like, we all start from the passion, and how we get to the end goal, it just depends on how the funds can roll in. So
the challenge is that chasing cool, in my mind, is a bit of a mistake, right? That I love that you guys said you're focused on the business, because inevitably nothing stays cool forever, right? Like 100 Thieves won't, FaZe won't. At some point, these brands will be uncool. And if they looked at sort of, they love comparing themselves to luxury brands like Gucci and, these kinds of things. All those brands had very dark days. I mean, Gucci's hot now, but 10 years ago, no one would touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so it's one of these things where, chasing cool always seems a bit of a mistake to me. William, sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I've asked too many questions, so I like. I have one more. Go ahead. So my other thing is, given your, again, the perspective of Super 8, I'm curious about emerging games and what you guys see as the next hotness. Because, we're talking about chasing cool, but you guys are probably in a unique position to sort of, you're close to the community, you're close to the customer. You mentioned that, for example, League of Legends was a tentpole that established many new teams. Obviously still very influential today, but arguably maybe not as influential as it once was. Where do you see the industry going in terms of like the big games of 2022? Like, what do you have your eye on?
Yeah, so we kind of look at it in two ways because of how our business model is built. And the first one of those is just that we're a community hub, right? So anytime a new game's coming out, we jump on top of it, right? Because we want anybody who's walking through a Walmart or follows us on social or whatever it might be is able to engage with us around any new title, right? Whether that's new Metroid Dread comes out, we're going to get a Metroid Dread standee, a banner, take pictures at our local Walmarts, try the game out. Same thing for the new Pokemon coming out, same thing. New Call of Duty comes out, we get new game codes in there, all night, stay and play all night because New World's out, grind to 20, whatever it is. We always are, jumping on that new hype train because we are that local day-to-day community. But when it comes to, what we were investing our dollars and cents into, our talent, really trying to build those relationships around, it focuses a lot around the developers. Because, any non-developer based esports organization knows that a lot of their company ride or dies based on the relationship with these game developers because they kind of really dictate what you can and cannot do with their games to an extent. Of course, you can always push the needle and try to be creative with it again, because that rule book isn't fully written, of course, which is great for us. And we always try to push that envelope. But when it comes to those big games that we're always focusing on, like Apex Legends, for example, it just depends on how good our relationship is with those developers and how we can fully integrate into that game. Because Esports Arena and our ecosystem works best if we are really fully integrated into an ecosystem. The game developers give us, for example, private access to their API or custom servers, so as we can build a better experience for our clientele. So that's really how Series E and Apex Legends started, was just because EA was willing to work with us on all fronts. So in that sense, it allows us to dive into a game that not only we believed in to an extent as far as the Battle Royale genre goes, but also allowed us to engage with that community on a higher scale than we would be able to do with something like Fortnite or Call of Duty because of, limitations we have with those titles due to game developers.
Yeah, the game developers unfortunately hold a lot of cards, and you want to play nice with them because you don't want to play mean with them because they can't be mean. I would say the most anticipated thing that I'm looking forward to is we've been a reactionary business for so long. It's like Fortnite was very popular. Oh, great. Let's focus on a Fortnite tournament, develop something really quick, and then, get some, a bunch of people in our arena so that they can play Fortnite together. I'm looking forward to the day that, we're in hundreds of locations, not too much market saturation, obviously, so we don't want to go too far, but we've got a distribution that a young game developer, like I want the next PUBG, right? Like that to me is, I think, obviously H1Z1 did what they did and Arma and all that sort of stuff. But like when PUBG, had like big dollar amounts to really develop a new genre and really be a pioneer in a new genre, they probably really wanted like a great distribution. Obviously they had a ton of people downloaded things like that right out the gates. And it's actually one of my favorite games that I played, along with Heroes of the Storm since I started this company. Luke told me to throw that one in there. I'm a huge Joanna main.
Oh my God, is this a joke? Because I
told you this was gonna happen.
You guys are this. You're memeing, right? This is.
I'm not memeing. I literally, that's like the only game I currently play.
I'm like I'm like the biggest Heroes of the Storm fan of all time.
I love that game. I think it's
see, this is the whole thing. I think this game has like a secret following in the industry.
I think
like
100% it does.
People who
mind
really
actually,
know
super
games,
secret.
like
The most.
Mike, let's do the handshake. Let's do the handshake.
we can't show anybody. Come on.
We can't show it on camera. We can't show it on camera.
We can't show on camera.
Exactly. Hanamane's bold, man. That's bold.
But I haven't played her since she got buffed.
Because, she had some strong times in the meta, some rough times. Iron Skin's always amazing. Anyway,
I'm a great Leoric too, like phenomenal Leoric.
That's
the low lane. Get out of here, dude! Come on, man. You know I'm good at the game. It's like the one that and Halo 2 is like the one game I'm good at.
You were like the good at the 2 games I'm good at. Like,
so when you asked me the new combo question, and now it's like Johanna, man, you flipped out. So yeah, you're right. That's we should game more.
Guys, can we talk about just a bit of a deeper dive on one of the integrations or activations you guys did with Walmart, specifically the Overpowered laptops?
Whew, come on now. I thought it was on a list of do not ask questions.
But I will say I bought one and I thought it was decent. I thought it was a good machine.
I game on one.
And it was good value. And one of my editors is using it now, and it's seen a lot of use and a lot of legs. I'm curious what happened there. What for whatever, as much as you can talk to it, right? If you can't talk to it, that's okay too. But I thought it was a clever integration, and I liked Walmart sort of throwing their hat in the hardware ring. It's again, Walmart's a great mainstream brand, trusted brand. And for a family looking for, to parents looking to buy their kid a gaming laptop, to me, it made a lot of sense. I'm curious.
Somebody got it. Someone got it. Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You got to love and hate the gaming community, right? Because we got a ton of great promotion ahead of time. So when Walmart originally said like, hey, we want to develop this, and I was like, great. Like, I'd love to do it. I mean, to put our brand on a PC that's going to sell in Walmart, so that'd be that's the dream.
Yep.
Excuse me. But the problem is, it is challenging to sell to a gamer. And we are the most hypercritical people that there are all around. And we know exactly how to attack them online. I mean, it's just this. You create videos on it, you throw it on Reddit, you just Twitter. It's like you could easily just.
But it wasn't for them, right, Tyler? It wasn't for them.
It wasn't for them.
Wasn't gonna replace my $12,000 custom water cooled PC, right? Like it's not gonna replace that.
Right.
It was good specs. It was affordable.
The problem is, I think that you're right. That's not the audience we were going after, but that's the audience who took the share voice, the clear voice of it all. And that was the challenge. Like, you go to the website and at Walmart.com and you look at the reviews, it was based on a video. What was that?
Linus Tech Tips?
No, not Linus Tech Tips. The other guy.
One of those guys. Someone
dark hair, or like long dark hair.
Gamers Nexus.
Yeah, Gamers Nexus. Thank you. He took that they shipped him the wrong machine. So he essentially thought he bought the 1080 version of it, and he received a 1060 with an i5. And so then he was like, whoa, he opens it up, and this is a 1050. This isn't a 1080. Like, they're trying to pawn me off. And because young gamers that shop at Walmart don't know the difference. They're not going to open up the PC and look at a 1050 or 1060 and not see a 1080. So that picked up a lot of traction. And a lot of people who didn't buy the machine went straight to Walmart.com and left a review saying, do not buy this. It's a scam. They're actually throwing 1060s in there, not 1080s. And they get 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. So like this, Gamers Nexus crew just instantly bombarded Walmart.com. And then we developed the specs. So we didn't build them or anything like that. I love the branding. I think the branding's phenomenal.
It was great. Overpowered was really cool.
Yeah. Actually, do you want to know what I originally was going to call it?
What? I'm curious now.
I was going to call it Broken. Because when hear me out.
Wait for it.
I still own the .com and all sorts of stuff because I love it. But BRKN, Broken. When something in the game is overpowered or something. It's like too good that the character of this gun is broken. That's what you say. That's what gamers say. It's broken.
It's great.
And then Walmart was like, we are not going
the PR nightmare ahead of time.
Yeah. I can see how that didn't go over well with Walmart.
We got for it for a while.
Still think it's sick though. Still love it.
But in some ways, like Tyler, I love it too. But that's still not your audience, right? The audience to me was you guys got it spot on with the branding, because to me that's what would have appealed. Again, it's mom and dad who are buying 8-year-old Timmy something for Christmas, and they're at Walmart, and this makes sense, right?
Yeah, I will say, I will not let Overpowered die the way that people have assumed it's dead. So, me personally, I'm gonna bring it back, and we learned a lot. Obviously, the things that we had picked out, 1080s, we picked out the CPUs, we picked out the power supplies, we picked out some cooling and all sorts of stuff. But what we didn't really focus on was the type of motherboard. As long as the motherboard handled what we had, PCIe slots and things like that, then I was like, okay, cool. And then also the type of RAM that was used, and that's where that's when you get this stuff built, the distributors, things like that, everyone wants to make money, obviously. And so you cut corners in certain ways. And I think that I want to say cut corners in a negative way, but I want to say that because it wasn't called out, because it wasn't focused on, go for the option that makes the most money. And, you can sell it at the lowest price. And I think that was something that was, overthought or oversought on our part. And it just like, once those few bad videos came out, we just could not bounce back. We really could not bounce back. But I'm happy to hear that you have the laptop, because I actually love the laptop.
Yeah, we use a bunch of them in our facilities.
We use a bunch of them, and I game on the
it bothers me. Because the gamer, the gamer response to me is so disingenuous in some ways, right? Like the industry loves to bandy around sort of the idea of this is gaming's all about accessibility. We need to be accessible. It's making it more accessible. And then here you have a machine being sold at Walmart, great value. Okay, again, no one was expecting the Walmart machine to be judged against, top of the line custom PCs. To then sort of poo-poo it, to me, goes against the whole, hey, we want the industry to be more accessible, because being able for a parent to go buy a sub $1,000 laptop for their kid to play games on, to me, was major.
Well, I'm very happy you see it that way.
That's how we felt.
That's how we felt too. It was one of those things that like, man, this is fantastic, because you think of the Walmart shopper, they're probably gaming on a Switch, or they're gaming on an Xbox, like an old Xbox, and now they're watching Ninja, who's playing on this awesome PC. Like, Mom, I want to game on a PC. I could be better at Fortnite gaming on a PC. And so like it was perfect timing for that too, because I think people elevating or graduating from like a console into a PC was perfect, because Fortnite was hot. And so I thought that we were gonna, and they sold out because the price was so great. But yeah, it's just it didn't look good online, and it is unfortunate. But like I said, the gamer crowd is a very unique, specific crowd. And, I've been a part of this crowd for a long time. And if you do something incorrectly, or do something that you're trying to make money off a gamer or a pawn or, whatever, then I think you're always going to get people to jump on the hype train and kind of want to take you down.
I'd love to see it come back. I'm definitely curious from a business perspective if it had come out sort of just as COVID hit, where everyone's trying to get hardware, and, PC hardware is at such a premium, and everything's selling for crazy prices. Like if Walmart had been able to put something out that was available and decently priced, I'm curious how that may have changed things, and how the timing may have changed things. But I'm very curious what you guys have in mind for that brand, because I do think it should have worked.
I think, with COVID kind of giving everyone an option to really focus on the future, which is what it did for us, right? Like we shut everything down, and then we had just like our few people left here, and then I have a great relationship with Walmart, obviously, and they are they're a fantastic company. They get a lot of negative press and things like that, but at the same time, like what they do changes the world. It really does. And the fact that they can offer such low prices for any product that's out there, and it's 50 miles away from everybody in North America, I think it's fantastic. But obviously, I'm unbiased here.
Yeah, completely unbiased.
I forgot where I was going with that.
No.
Like COVID gave us this opportunity
Yeah.
to really develop and focus on the relationship we have with Walmart. And I think that gave us a bigger seat at the table. Before, I didn't necessarily know how much power Esports Arena had with this voice of Overpowered. And so it's like, well, they're the experts, so I'm going to just, leave it to them. It's great. You guys got to figure it out. So I think if Overpowered ever does make a comeback, or if Walmart ever does decide to do another gaming PC concept, which, I mean, why wouldn't they? I think they should. I think we'll have a bigger seat at the table for that, and then be able to really focus on the quality. It's great. I mean, we had a trial run. We saw what we did wrong, and we could correct that.
Guys, before I wrap up here, Jimmy, William, do you guys have any other questions? Because I have one sort of last question to end on here.
I mean, tons of Heroes of the Storm questions, but
No,
none of those.
different podcast.
it's not going to be allowed. It's not going to be allowed.
That only you and I would listen to.
That's literally no.
The 5 other people who play. Come on, guys. There are occasionally queues where you fill, right?
Last time recently played, you filled it pretty
Can't
quickly.
queue up a game.
Yeah. You do ARAM, you're in the match in 30 seconds.
Literally losing viewers by the second. I got one final, and hopefully it doesn't take away from yours, Paul. And you guys have been so great, I think, sharing some awesome insights and not holding any or pulling any punches. Just curious, before we leave you, any teasers, hints, or areas that you want us to kind of look towards in the coming months as you have other releases and as you're doing things that you're not really discussing or sharing yet, but maybe just a direction for us to turn our heads in and know that your fingerprints are there and something's coming.
I'll let Luke go first.
Yeah, I would say, when it comes about the different programming that we end up rolling out, the biggest bulk, again, is Series E and us being able to provide these opportunities for players who are looking to take that first step or that first professional step into esports and earn that monthly salary, whatever it might be. And of course, we have Apex Legends. We just recently started Guilty Gear Strive, and we are adding a third game to our Series E roster by the end of this year. Of course, it's not out yet, but it will be coming out. We can't say what
it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to spoil what game we could possibly be adding to it, but it's not out yet. It is come out later this year, and I would say just stay tuned around that first week of December for the next announcement.
Yeah, that's a good hint. I think. Yeah.
Guys, before we wrap up, I have one last question because we started on this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. So we have new COD that's out now. We have Battlefield coming out next week, right? And Halo is coming out December, new Halo, right? And so maybe the 3 biggest franchises in FPS history. I'm curious how you guys rank these 3 in terms of how you think they're going to do sales-wise this year.
Sales-wise?
Which one's going to be the big success?
Well, Vanguard will dominate the sales.
I think so. Well,
in my opinion, it has to. It's Call of Duty. They do it every year. They're just going to keep doing it every year. Again, with the amount of influence that the current top streamers have and how much they're all Call of Duty primary players.
Yeah.
I just think there's no way that game doesn't absolutely dominate sales specifically.
You're basing it off of Halo's past.
Sure.
So I think Halo's had a lot of time to think about this launch.
Wait, hold on though, because I just want to put this out here that Halo Infinite is free to play on Game Pass Ultimate.
True.
Can't possibly win in sales. It's impossible.
That's a good point.
There's no way it beats Call of Duty Vanguard.
Subtle plug too, by the way. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Does Halo though do better because do you guys think Battlefield and COD suffer because of the Halo launch?
I don't think anything's going to suffer. No, I think everything. People typically buy all 3 games, right? So they all kind of buy because you want to play it all if you're an FPS guy or girl. But I think that which one's going to have the longevity? I heard you guys beforehand. I do agree that Vanguard will not be as big as Modern Warfare was, and it will be bigger than Black Ops. But I do see it potentially not having the success that Modern Warfare did have and the longevity that it had with. I'm blanking on the Battle Royale that they called it.
Blackout.
No,
Blackout
was the old one.
No,
Why am I
Firestorm or something. Fire or something. It was a fire.
Warzone.
Oh, you're talking about COD. I thought you were talking about Battlefield. The Battlefield.
No, I'm just talking about COD because it's obviously Warzone was so successful and it still is successful, right? But all I'm trying to say is I think that Halo will surprise, I think, a lot of us. And I this is just having a feeling.
I think Halo will be the most successful of the 3 titles, but sales has to be Vanguard because of Game Pass.
I agree with that. Yes, I'll allude to Luke with that one and agree with him.
I love it. What a perfect way to wrap this up, guys. If you want to be followed, found, like where can people find out more about Esports Arena or connect with either one of you or however you want to be reached or followed?
Yeah, obviously our socials, just search Esports Arena. I mean, it's pretty much Esports Arena all across the board.
TikTok especially, guys. Make sure you check out our TikTok.
Everyone just loves making TikToks here. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they all just love TikToks. Luke and myself have been intently tweeting a lot more because we're trying to, build our own followers up. So ESA_Tyler, and
I'm at Shimona. So it's Michael Jackson's Vibes. You can spell it out.
Shimona.
That's going to be an easy one. Guys, I love it. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Jimmy, William, thank you guys as always. For our listeners, guys, don't forget, follow us everywhere, subscribe everywhere, YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, anywhere you want to consume Business of Esports content. We appreciate it. Make sure to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews, and go leave a review on William's book, The Book of Esports, if you haven't already. It also comes in a Spanish language version now, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, but definitely go give William some love on Amazon if you love the book. And as always, guys, we do a live stream every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's all the news we don't get to cover in the podcast. And it's a lot of fun. We get to do it live with you guys. You get to ask questions, get in our faces. This podcast, though, we're going to wrap this up. And as always, guys, we will see you next week.